Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Ms. Stacey Bulluck joining us again, telling us, of course, it's all about the power of resilience. She can help you in so many different ways as a coach through life, with your job skills, you name it. She's the CEO of Power in Resilience from Long Beach, California. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure to be here and share our excitement about resilience. And today I said, let me say a little more about this whole reason why Stacey Bulluck is so excited about understanding the power that we have in resilience. And we have to go through this every day and say to ourselves, I am going to be authentically me, but how am I going to be that when life keeps throwing me so many curveballs?
Yeah.
And I was listening to the earlier guest, and she said something about pain. And today is one of those days that I'm kind of having some of the residuals from my accident in the military. Some have heard, some have read that I am an 18-year Army veteran. And why not 20 years? Well, because of the accident in Egypt. And I'm not dwelling on that by no stretch of the imagination. I use that now as a catalyst. And today was like, okay, this catalyst must kick in because sometimes when the weather wants to change and get beautiful,
Yeah.
you would think that you would have no residuals at all from something that could cause you pain on such a beautiful, lovely day here in Long Beach, California. I hope it is the same wherever our listeners are. And that's a mindset though, but we're not going to go there. We're going to leave that alone. But I am an outlaster of all of my pains.
Oh,
I refuse to say you win.
mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen because I am going to continually every day pull on the resilience that I know that works when we have an understanding that we are capable of having it.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in, power and resilience, and ignite people to have that understanding and awareness and look forward to knowing, being sure of who we are. Because if we're not, then that's another issue again.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, Power and Resilience is a company that will ignite your resilience and spark you to begin to change life. And I just want to give a brief little history about one of my clients. This called me the other day. It was such an amazing time. There was bad news. And notice I said amazing time because he said if he had not been working with us, he would have taken that news totally different. He would not have been able to bounce back quickly from what he heard and not dwell and go down the rabbit hole of,
Wow.
woe is me, my life could be that way. I could no longer be here. But he chose to pull on his resilience because he has been working with us for not even a month.
Mm-hmm.
And beginning to say, no, I have to look at this different. And I am embarking on these new territories, and he's excited about it.
Wow.
And realizing and observing his own behaviors. And I'm not really not going to go too far with that either, Miss Jill. I'm going to let you jump in here. I'm going to be quiet because power and resilience gets me hyped. I said it last week and I mean it. I mean it from my heart.
Well, it's a great thing, not to get too personal with your client, but I don't know what, specifically what happened, but you're right. My example of that is, people 5 years ago looked at me. My mom passed away and I took care of her. She had lung cancer. So I got to spend the last 6 months with her every day, taking care of her as I was pregnant. And I had a 2-year-old, and it was just the most rewarding, amazing job ever. No other job could ever compare, no other thing. It was just beautiful to have her in my presence as hard as it wasn't so hard. It was so beautiful. So now the time comes and she passes. I got to hold her hand in the middle of the night, and you know, and we're at the wake and the funeral, and it's just emotional. But at the same time, I'm like smiling and I'm happy. And people are like, "How could you be happy?" You're because it's beautiful. I'm like, and I even did my mother's makeup when she passed in the casket. I said, because it's okay. I
Mm,
wanted her to look beautiful, and it's just a part of life. If I didn't have that mindset about how I feel about afterlife, how I feel about life, more positive. I would be hysterical, crying in my tears with my little 2-month-old baby and my 2-year-old. And of course there was tears, but you got to look at everything, everything happens for a reason. I believe in an
yes.
afterlife. I believe in, but the way you perceive things. Then you have my brother, on the other hand, who was a mess, couldn't eat, couldn't work. He lost his job. It really affected him differently, right? But he doesn't have,
Mhm,
I'm going to
mhm,
say I have more mindset skills than him for sure, but it's more of a positivity thing. But my brother doesn't have
mhm.
that, and it affected him hard. So it's
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
it's everybody's different,
different. And
but
we have to be aware of that.
mhm, but you
Mm.
can change to be more resilient in any situation and positive. And
Yes.
yeah, so that's my
In
little,
any situation, though, you said some key words. You said any situation, and earlier you said your perspective. You had to see it different. And we can't do things different just sometimes just by somebody bringing it to excuse me to our attention. We really have to be able to see it different. You saw and it was a death. The incident was someone died,
mhm,
and who was very close. And so our mindset, that's resiliency, starts in your mind. It doesn't
mhm,
start from the outside, it starts from the inside. And we are looking at it and must make sure that it is heading in the right direction so that we won't go through some of the things that your brother went through. And I hope that he
mm,
has bounced back. And so it's like, oh my goodness. And why is that? Why is it that we have one sibling one way and another sibling the other way? And it's simple, it's just a perspective.
mhm. Yeah,
And sometimes our perspective can be a little skewed.
exactly.
and,
Couldn't say it better.
and
Yeah.
we have to be mindful of that. Just making sure that our experiences haven't shaped us in such a way that when life does show up, we're not able to handle
True.
it.
Mhm.
And because it's going to show up, it's inevitable. We are all going to face something in life. If you go through life with nothing, oh, oh my goodness, somebody needs to bottle that.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, so us paying attention to our own behaviors, that's what I wanted to talk about today.
sure.
Observation, seeing who we are, seeing how we show up to the world. How do I look when things happen? Do I look like I'm firm, or do I look like I'm a little wobbly? And we could be either or. But if we are, because sometimes people can look firm, but they're not necessarily
Oh yeah.
intact. They look
Mhm.
like it from the
Good
outside, but
actors.
the
Good. Yep.
inside,
Mhm.
yeah, good actors, but the inside is crumbling. I remember those days. I remember I looked like I was the strong family member, but on the inside, I was crumbling.
Yeah.
But I just had to look and see what was going on with me. That's
Mhm.
how I'm able to know what it will take to guide somebody through some difficulties, and they're able to observe the process. You know what? Even doctors with an MD will say they're going to need their patient to stay overnight for observation.
Yeah. Very true.
And they're going to, they need them to do that so that they can find a solution
Mhm.
for the problem. We have to find a solution for our, we all have something going on every day. However, if we have something that has impacted us and change that, that will, again, like I was talking about, skewing our vision of how we see it, of how we perceive it. I talked about one of my clients earlier today, but I have two clients, more than two, but these particular two have the same pain, the same issue, I'll call it circumstance, that's what I'll call it. Two from two different walks of life, though. One from a background that may not be the best that people, think the best lifestyle, and another having this wonderful, great career as an educator, and but they have the same situation, same circumstance, and it changes their life tremendously. And they have to be able to come back. Again, we have two different people, same circumstance, you and your brother, same circumstance, two different mindsets, two different outlooks. It makes the world of difference. And sometimes everyone has not been trained that way. With these two, we had to go through some things to say, oh, I got to retrain my mind. Working with the homeless clients that we work with in the nonprofit Ordered Steps Incorporated, I found that it has to be a retraining of the mind when you put someone in housing. Because if they've been living on the street for a very long time, those same behaviors go inside the building with them. So just because you put a roof over their head doesn't mean that they're going to stop hoarding trash. And that they're going to now all of a sudden, because I'm in a house, I'm going to take my trash out. No, not at all. The mind has to be trained. You have to say, oh, well, wait a minute. What do you need to do now to bounce back to life? Because you weren't born homeless. Some of them weren't. Some babies unfortunately are. Okay, that one grabbed my heart. So I'm not
thinking
gonna
about all the
embark
babies
on
and the
that one.
children in Ukraine that are displaced, and
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's gotta come back here. We are human. We still have this emotions that come up with various things, and we have to learn to say, okay, I can't let this emotion take me so far out of pocket that I don't know my way back, that things start to fall away from me that are beneficial for my life. So we have to say, what do I need to do? How do I change my mind? I got to gain some ways to tackle some problems. How do I do that? And if we first have to ask ourselves, does this really matter to me? Is it that important? Sometimes things just aren't that important. And when we begin to take on those things that aren't that important, they take up room when life shows up and that thing is important. We must make sure we have balance. Tell ourselves the truth. Don't keep telling yourself, oh, everything is okay, everything is all right, when it's not. Let's make sure we are looking through clear lenses and not the rose-colored glasses.
We call them foggy goggles.
Foggy goggles. Yeah, so it takes commitment, though. If we're not committed to anything, it's not gonna be easy for us to do. When we're committed to it, I believe that it makes it pleasurable. It's a delightful thing to do. Helping people is a delightful thing for me to do. It lights me up. Now I can be who I am. I said to some people last night I was speaking with that it's the best. It was the best feeling. I'm being the best. I am my best self right now. Even now, speaking with you, Jill, I am my best self right now because this is who I am. This is what I'm created to do, is to provide thoughts express thoughts, knowledge,
Mhm.
and wisdom and understanding to people so that their lives will change. Say that they will not lose their jobs, that they will not lose their marriages, that they will not give up on themselves. There's this thing called psychogenic death, and it's in the mind. The mind just goes first, then everything else follows. So we have to catch people before they get to that point. But again, like I said, they have to be committed to do it.
Yeah.
It's not a one-sided street by no stretch of the imagination. We all have to be willing to put in the work. And, sometimes the work for me was moving 2,600 miles across the country.
That's
That
the,
was part of the
I was
that
gonna,
was part of the work. Pack up and drive to California
mm,
from, at that time, Reston, Virginia, which is in the DMV. And yeah, it's time to move. Okay, well, it's time to move. And when I became committed to it, things started lining up and falling into place, because I think I was on a track. I was
yeah.
getting ready to fall into an area where I was going to go to some old habits, because I was still at home and my family was there, and that, I was very familiar with all that was going on there. And sometimes familiar, oh, can I get the word right?
Familiar. I know what you mean.
Familiarity will cause you to become complacent. And if we become complacent, to me, that's a dangerous place. Now we need to find resilience and not becoming complacent.
Yeah.
And so let me back up a little bit. If we find ourselves in complacency, we need the resilience to come out of the complacency, because now we're stagnant. It's like, oh, I'm happy. Everything's wonderful. And that's what I said. Wow. Just said it, heard myself say it out loud. This is what I said to myself when I got here. I said, I was fine in Reston, Virginia. I was having a good time. I loved my house. My condo was wonderful. My view was the woods, and they were not going to ever tear it down because if they had landmarks out there. I had my dog, Picasso, and everything was just
Aw.
great. And we would go on our walks. We had trails within sight of the condominium. And so it's like, what moves for what? I'm complacent.
Mhm.
I'm okay here. I'm not being stretched. I'm not growing. I'm not using any resilience. And I started to pay attention to that. We're talking about observing our behaviors today.
Wow.
And I began to pay attention to my behavior. And I think I was going to go back to some old habits, nothing too far off though, just hanging out with family on a more consistent basis. And sometimes I take up time where I needed to be writing in my, at that time, second book.
Mhm.
And I would take up time to go do something else. But I had to make sure that I had the resilient strength on the inside of me to stop me.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's sometimes really hard to do, especially when we don't see anything wrong. When we become complacent, it takes away our sight. We can't see.
Mhm.
Like I'm good. Everything I see is good. But are you growing? Are you producing? Are you maturing into this fabulous person that I know that you are? And so at the point I could say no. I began to you know what it was, Jill? I spent October 1st to October 21st of 2018 in pain every day.
Ah,
I sat in my recliner. I remember it vividly now. I sat in my recliner and I sat back and I just had a conversation during some meditation time. And I thought, what is this pain for? And I clearly heard in my heart that pain was going to catapult me to my next dimension.
Wow.
My perspective changed.
Mhm.
My perspective changed. And because my perspective changed, I was able, when I felt in my heart, oh, it's time to move, I was able to follow that. I was able to say, okay, what is it that I need to do next? Start asking questions, start moving forward, not staying stagnant anymore. Oh, it got tough though. That move was, ooh, the movers were not that good, I'll say. And that tested me. That gave me a test to see if I was going to erupt and stay in that emotional state of eruption where I couldn't hear anything. And I one day I got so upset, and I had to come back and apologize to the moving company, who the people who were on the phone, because I was so upset, because it was a big thing going on in life. It was a
Yeah.
good thing, and it was an exciting thing, but it was something that said, hey, you get ready to get swooped up from where you were.
Mhm.
But it's okay, because that resilience kicked in
Yeah.
and said, you know who you are now. That's our program, SOAR. We looked at self for probably about a year and a half prior to that. If everything was focused on me on the inside and building me and finding out who I am and why I'm here. And so then it says, okay, now you've grown a little, you're maturing. So you need to move some more. And I drove 2,600 miles to Long Beach, California. And here I
Wow.
am today, almost 3 years later. I moved here April 2019, right before COVID.
Mhm.
See, and resilience kicked in, and I started a nonprofit the next year, January 2020, during COVID.
Wow.
Finished the book June 2019. Launched that book here in Long Beach, California. Don't let your brain go numb. Regaining power through resilience. I wrote this as a testament to how we can have this power that will just ignite us and take us to places that we didn't even imagine that we were going to go, because we saw too many things in life and how it messed us up. I had divorce. I had children who didn't do exactly what I thought they should do. Now they're adults, and thank God they're doing well.
Mhm.
But I had to be able to say, don't go back to your old habits. Look at what you're doing. Think about what you're thinking about. Find out what is it going to take to get you to the next place that you feel now that you should be getting to. Now that you've come out of this complacent state.
I love it.
So it has been, I'm not sure on the time here. I know I was just
We're
chattering and
good.
chattering.
We still got 6 minutes. We're good. Keep talking.
Oh, wow, we're doing real good. We're doing real good. You know what I discovered? That there's this word, and I've talked about complacent, but this word is called complaisant.
Don't is that like a French form or like a Spanish form? I don't
Excuse
know.
me, it's
Okay.
COMPLAISANT. And so it means that we're eager and that we're happy about the opportunities in life when they come. And we can say, now I can grow through this. So I'm talking about how we can change into that's, because that's what I did when I said, I'm committed to this. I'm observing how I'm going to, what I'm doing to get me there. And now I got to come out of this complacent state. And now we find out that, oh, I can be eager and happy about the pain that I had. I can be eager and happy about the divorce that I went through, the heartache that I suffered, the loss of a family member or a friend. You mean I can find some solace in all of
Solace.
this?
That's the word. Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, you can do
Mhm.
this. In power and resilience, we can, hey, we are here to help you. That is powerandresilience.com. Simple, powerandresilience.com. But if you want to send me a personal email, just add Stacey, Stacey, at powerandresilience.com. And we'll be here to help. We're the same with Instagram, Power and Resilience. Google power and resilience, and I guarantee you will show up.
And how can we find you on social media?
That is good. Power and resilience, all one word. No
I love it.
hyphens, no
She's good.
underscores.
She's good.
Just power and resilience. Just, yes, it's like, hey, just think about it. Power and resilience. It just resonates with you.
Yeah.
It makes me sit up straight.
Oh, wonderful.
Or you can find me at Stacey_Bulluck. That's Bulluck. That's on Instagram as well. And I'm also on Facebook at Stacey Bulluck too.
Not to be confused with Sandra like I did, but ironically, remember last week I ended up seeing a Sandra Bullock movie this weekend. With Channing Tatum, The Lost City. I was laughing. I thought about you, Stacey. I'm like, oh, Miss Bullock.
You let me creep into your weekends now. That's
See?
all right.
That's good. That's good positive mindset with good people.
That is, yes, for sure. And that is definitely something that is good to have in your characteristics, that people don't mind you showing up in their weekends.
Absolutely. Stacey Bulluck, a pleasure having you here and looking forward to the next time we get to speak. Do you want to leave some words of advice for us for your last?
I just want to
something out. Go ahead.
have people to remember to pay attention to what you're thinking about. Okay. Because what we're thinking about will guide us to begin to show up in the world. And if we're thinking negative, it's going to show up. It shows up in our behavior. But if we think positive, it shows up in our behavior.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Keep positive, everyone.
Have a
great week and looking forward to the next time we get to speak. Thank you. Have a great day. And to all of our listeners and viewers, the same. Stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.